We have with us three panelist experts. Mr. Kartik Desai is founder and CEO of Desai and Associates, a firm providing thought leadership on development economics and social finance, facilitating impact investments and philanthropy in frontier markets in Asia and advising founders, funders, and policymakers on strategic solutions in climate change, livelihoods, and inclusion. Kartik is considered a pioneer of social finance in India, with leadership over leading impact investing institutions, advising investors, donors, corporates, policymakers, and academics, and demonstrating a track record of successful impact investments and exits in the last 15 years. He has almost 2 decades of experience in investment banking, private equity, venture capital, social entrepreneurship, development finance, and economic policy. So, Karthik is a recognized thought leader, active writer, and speaker, visiting faculty at Ashoka University, Ambedkar University, ISGM, and Ananta National University. So, we welcome Mr. Karthik Desai to this workshop on organic marketing. We also welcome another expert, Mr. Basant Kumar Mishra. Basant Kumar Mishra is a rural management expert, over 23 years of experience of project management and research in agriculture, and is currently CEO for Embee Enterprises, a company into commodity trading, corporate and social consulting. Basant Mishra's core strength is business strategy, commodity trade, FMCG, agri-input, agri-business, and rural management. He is a seasoned management professional with expertise in development and execution of profitable business strategy in unstructured environment for commercial enterprises and development project. Some of the places where he has engaged in the past are Rallies India Limited, a Tata Group company, Dalmia Consumer Care, Olam International, Platinum Corporation. So we welcome Mr. Basant to this panel discussion. The third panelist we have is Mr. Madhusoodhanan K. He's the founder and managing director. He's a postgraduate in management from IIM Ahmedabad and BTech Computer Science from Pondicherry University. After his graduation from IIM Ahmedabad, he was a consultant. He worked as a consultant for a couple of years and later moved on to the venture capital industry. His other interests are yoga, Tamil literature, Sanskrit literature, and travel. He started Dhanyam, a retail chain specializing in organic produce in 2010. Dhanyam produces organic produce from across the country and retails in Chennai via its 9 outlets in the city. The Dhanyam brand today is today in Chennai is the retail chain is considered a pioneer in sourcing high quality, authentic organic produce for the urban consumer. Welcome, Madhusoodhanan. Thank you. And another person, the CEO of Access Livelihoods, Mr. GV Krishnagopal. We welcome him as a moderator for this panel discussion. Mr. GV Krishnagopal is a rural management professional with a graduate degree from the Institute of Rural Management in Anand. He is passionate about working with the economically marginalized in their efforts to transform their lives and be self-reliant. His experience in the development sector extends to over 20 years. His areas of specialization include financial management, capacity building, business planning, fundraising, and enterprise promotion. So, as he is fondly known at Access Livelihood, KG, has the distinction of being involved in creating India's first all-women co-op. He has been involved in the evaluation and assessment, strategic and business planning, and capacity building of different projects across India. He has provided consulting support to various organizations. A few of them are Ford Foundation, Ratan Tata Trust, Japan Bank of International Cooperation, Oxfam Australia. He has presented papers, including tribal livelihoods, emerging initiatives, and all. So thank you, KG. We welcome you to this panel discussion. I now hand over this panel discussion to KG. Thank you, KG.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks to the panelists who have agreed in a short time to be present for 2 hours with us and help us unravel the opportunities that are there for the marketing and production side. I hope I am audible sufficiently. May I request the panelists, Madhusoodhanan, Basant, as well as Kartik, to switch on their cameras. I would start the first of my question in a very simple way. We would like to give 2 minutes or 3 minutes to each of the panelists to help us understand what is the kind of an opportunity that we are trying to discuss for the Northeast in terms of organic farming, keeping their specialization or area of expertise. So when Kartik would speak, I would ask him to give what kind of an opportunity exists in terms of raising finances, which will be useful for promoting organic farming in this one. Similarly, Mr. Madhusoodhanan can talk about what kind of an opportunity are we talking about when we say that there is a growing consciousness within the consumers in terms of looking at organic produce. And Mr. Basant Mishra, because I'm familiar with him, we have been batchmates at IRMA. So maybe he can tell us about the opportunities that are emerging internationally in terms of what is organic produce and organic produce has, especially keeping a focus on what Northeast has in this one. So I'll just want opening remarks from each one of them. 2 to 3 minutes, please. Can I start with Kartik?
Thank you, Krishna. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. I'm probably the least, qualified to speak on this panel. So I'm actually looking forward more to learning about the actual work that happens on the ground, which all of you guys are doing. But
work at the ground requires the inputs from people like you who have expertise on how do we structure finances for organic farming, right?
Correct. So I'm happy to give some perspectives on that. My background really has been in impact investment. Those of you who are familiar with social finance, first thing we have to recognize is, that the capital is coming of different types. So we have something called the social finance spectrum. So many of these concepts people have heard about, right? ESG, which is environmental and social and governance focused capital coming from corporations. Then there's impact investment. And then there's also something called blended finance, which is mixing philanthropic, public and private capital. So there's different types of social finance, which has different financial return and impact objectives. So that's the first thing people need to understand. And then secondly, we have different types of capital in terms of equity, debt, and grants, right? So each of those is also seeking different risk and return. So there is a decent amount of development capital that has become available in India overall of different types. We've seen impact investment grow, and we've also seen philanthropy grow. But the challenge, and we've also seen money going into ag tech, right? So agriculture as an overall sector has received funding over the last 3-4 years. But that is the good news. After that, there's a lot of bad news. Principally being that most of the money is still going into large commercially focused business models. So what that means in ag or agriculture is that, there's lesser investment going into models working with smallholder farmers, which is where the impact is. There's lesser investment going into regenerative agriculture, right? Which is also important. And finally, there's lesser investment going into underserved regions. India is a big country. It has a lot of startup investment, third or fourth highest in the world. But I think many of you know this. I think 70 to 80% of that investment, not only is it not going to Northeast, it's not even going to the rest of India. It goes to just 3 cities, Bangalore, Bombay, and NCR region. 80% of all of the capital. Imagine. And then the tier 2 cities, each of which is sometimes as big as a country in another region, right? We're talking about major tier 2 cities from Ahmedabad to Pune, Indore, in let's say Western India. In Southern India, you have several, right? And after that, you're coming to the tier 3 cities and really underserved regions, which includes the Northeastern region. It includes other parts of the Himalayan region. So this is a challenge that we're dealing with, that how do you get capital to come to underserved regions? Whether these can be parts of major states, like Andhra Pradesh is a big state. There's certain districts there, for example, where Access Livelihoods and others are doing work, which can be underserved, or there can be entire states which are underserved. So there's a range of impact investors who are specifically working on this issue, that how do we get capital to underserved regions? My firm has worked with several such investors. So I think this is the question that we all need to grapple. One, how does capital come to the underserved regions? Number two, uh, the smallholder farmers, that how do we take capital towards more inclusive models rather than B2B models, which are more commercial. And third is the exact specific instrument I think that people can start to become more familiar with beyond just traditional grant, or beyond just traditional equity. There are new instruments now available. I'm happy to speak about some of those. So those are some of my initial thoughts around, what are the challenges in bringing capital to such activities.
Thank you,
Happy
Kartik.
to get into more detail.
It's well laid out, and I think we will discuss some of these areas, both the new instruments that are emerging and how can capital really flow into the areas which deserves attention. Both of these areas as we get along. Can I ask Mr. Madhusoodhanan to give the opening remarks? From the consumer perspective and from the retail perspective, what is the as an opportunity that we are talking about?
Namaskaram to all. Thank you, Krishna, for inviting me to this panel. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'll just give a brief background about what work I've been doing, and then I'll just talk a bit about the topic which you said. Over the last 12 years, I've been running an organic retail store in Chennai. We have about 9 stores in Chennai. We focus in providing good quality organic produce from across the country. So the challenge which we are dealing with is how do we present the produce which is available with our organic farmers from across the country, small or big, to the urban consumer. What is it that the urban consumer wants? Because ultimately the money is with the urban consumer, right? So if you want to get good product price realization, urban consumer, you have to talk to him or her. So what is it that the urban consumer is looking for? How to present it to him or her, mainly her, and how we can communicate this till the back end, till the farmer and the processor. So these are the challenges which I am dealing with actually. So just to give you a brief idea about the principal challenge, right, in dealing with organic farmers, specifically small farmers, but even big farmers, right? See, the organic supply chain is not very well organized as opposed to the conventional market supply chains, which have a wholesale market. There is a farmer, and then there is a middleman trader, commission agent. Then it goes to the wholesale markets, and a wholesale dealer from another geography picks up from this particular wholesale market and then distributes it to the retailers. That so this whole thing, which is available for conventional agricultural produce, is not well established for the organic sector. It's not there actually. So therefore, many a times, right, be a retailer. Ultimately, a retailer is a small scale player. Have to deal directly with the farmers. So when we do that, see the notion of quality which the urban consumer has, for which the urban consumer is willing to pay, is very difficult to understand for the organic farmer, which that has been the principal challenge for us actually. So, for example, some produce we even get from the northeast many times. The let's say it could be something like long pepper or turmeric or anything which we source from there, right? So we say something like 500 kgs of something needs to be of certain quality. What happens when we receive it is it's mostly ungraded, unsorted when we deal with individual farmers, I'm saying. So as far as the farmer is concerned, the produce is valuable and they have sent it. But when it is ungraded, unsorted, it is actually not very valuable, right? Because the urban consumer, the end consumer, right, doesn't like any blemish at all. Because when we talk about our organic segment, we are talking about a very segment which is willing to pay premium, but wants the quality of the premium price they are paying. So when that happens, right, even a small blemish, let's say we are getting apples from Ladakh, right? So a small blemish, something happens in transport, it always happens. So even that in a normal market, in a normal supermarket, somebody buys 2 kgs of apples and one apple is a bit, damaged. The consumer just doesn't blink an eye. It doesn't matter. They will just go on. But when we are selling something premium, when you are saying it's organic and we are extracting a premium price from the consumer, a small thing, even just a small blemish in the produce matters. And it will lead to a lot of customer returns, and then we need to return it back to the supplier, the farmer. So this understanding of quality, what quality means for the urban consumer, and among the urban consumer, when you are talking organic, you are dealing with a certain kind of urban consumer, not the mass market urban consumer. So that notion of quality of the premium urban consumer is different from what the farmer mostly perceives as quality. So this is the principal challenge for us actually. The other challenges include distribution costs, how to manage them, how to manage the when you're dealing with small farmers, you have to you don't have the luxury of volumes, which will bring your per unit cost down, right? So how do you manage those? These are some of the other challenges we have. Then specifically with respect to organic segment, there is always the question of authenticity and certification procedures, etc. So that is another added layer of complexity when you deal with organic produce. So these are my brief initial thoughts. Let's see, based on the discussion and questions I can address. Thank you.
So very valuable insights. I think, supply chain standardization, traceability, and cost optimization. All of these are key questions when we want to reach to consumer in a reliable way. And if we have to look at an opportunity for the Northeastern farmers, then we have to address these three issues, which you have said, very critical issues. I'm sure you will give more insights on how we should be able to standardize this as we move along in the discussion. May I request Basant now to give his opening remarks on especially what kind of an opportunity does he look at in terms of international markets for organic produce, especially keeping a focus on Northeast.
Okay, good morning, everybody. And it's international and national both needs to be seen in one frame. And then only we'll be able to work on the things in this case. So what happens is usually my take is that whenever we address an issue, either we talk of demand side or we talk of supply side. So if somebody who is working on marketing focuses only on marketing, they usually tend to forget about the efficiencies that they require in sourcing, so that the value chain is efficient and consumer gets what they get and producers they get what is due to them. Similarly, on the demand side, people feel that, okay, we need to generate the demand. Supply side. On supply side, people feel that, okay, we need to pump in the resources at supply side, and through trickle down effort, the market and the destination by itself will absorb all this. But frankly telling, this doesn't work. Similarly for financing, as Kartik was mentioning, that financing is required in rural area and to the have-nots basically. Now there are enough financing available there, and financing which is happening at the right place is where the market exists. Now these guys, it needs to be ensured that the financing is done in a participatory manner, so that these guys do take care that the due share which has to go to producers should go to them. Like later, when I will get the time to elaborate on this, I will elaborate this with an example, like what we are trying to do in Odisha. How we are trying to build in like some buyer, the efficiency of that buyer we are trying to transfer to producers through FPOs, in spite of all the challenges that exist there. So if we are able to establish one such model, this will work out. And of course, for organic getting into international market, the first thing we need to have is the quality parameters, which confers to the quality requirement of buyers. We are no one to decide the quality parameter. Somebody sitting in Northeast cannot decide what quality parameter European people want, or some agency cannot decide that, okay, this is the certification that will work, and so they roll it out tomorrow. That needs to come 100% from consumers. And then we need to work it out in a way so that that efficiency develops and the quality produced is delivered to the customers, which is acceptable to them. So later today, when we are into discussion, we can discuss all this with examples. But as KG had summed it up, the supply chain optimization needs to be done and needs to be done in a single string. Like somebody who is doing it needs to view from production till end consumer and needs to understand the complete value chain. Just understanding a portion of it will not work.
Thank you, Basant. So I straight away jump into my first question, and which is this one. That Kartik, you are able to clearly listen from both the marketing people, professionals, right? That today the supply chain is not standardized, and production systems are not reliable in terms of the consumer quality expectations. So how do we look at reliability only from the perspective of what is the consumer quality that is required? And typically, we are also talking about challenges like certification, traceability, and all these things very well laid out. Now, as I understand, when we talk about developing in a particular cluster, such a kind of, a production system which is fully stable, reliable, and can deliver what the consumer wants, it requires what you have mentioned as blended finance as the key, where we are able to combine philanthropic capital with equity and debt. So can you just explain, even though there is a lot of talk about climate crisis and, investments in regenerative agriculture being spoken about, is blended finance there, or is it going to take time? And what is it actually required for blended finance to be made functional in organic farming?
Thanks, Krishna. Yeah, this is the difficult question to answer because, see, blended finance is a big topic. I think, as the name means, it just means combining different types of capital, right? So I think, first, let me just explain two types of blended finance structures, which may be helpful for us. One is what we call results-based financing, okay, or pay for success. This is a new concept. This is quite cool because it's basically, as the name suggests, paying for impact. That is social impact or environmental impact. So the classic instrument here is known as an impact bond. So a certain investment is made by an NGO or by a for-profit in, let's say, building an agricultural cluster in anything. It could be building a school, building a hospital. That's what we mean by investment. Behind that investment, there's a certain metric: number of people educated, number of people delivered healthcare. In agriculture, it could be number of farmers impacted multiplied by average income increase, etc., etc. And as long as the project meets those impact objectives, that so many hectares must be planted, the agricultural productivity must be minimum this much, each farmer must see such and such income increase, right? So you're not measuring the revenues or profit of the project. You're measuring the impact, correct? And if that impact is met, right, then the donor will give the money back for the project. That's an impact bond. So it's a very unique concept. But it's also difficult because it's expensive to set up. It takes time to raise this funding. And that's the complaint that people have, that the instrument is not liquid. You also have a set of blended finance instruments which are easier to use and more commercial. And that we can basically think of as affordable debt, right? Because in India, equity is more available. Equity, many people give, but equity is the most expensive form of financing. The most important form of financing, which is limited in our country, is debt. If people were getting affordable debt, not at too expensive an interest rate, then you don't need equity. But many social enterprises don't get debt. In agri, what kind of debt do you need? You basically need three kinds of debt, as you will understand better than me. During the pre-process, during the production, and during the post. So you basically need working capital, right? Because a large part of this is about input purchase, and then even during the sale process, the market linkage. So there's a substantial need for working capital. And the second need is for capex, because often you need value addition. So people have to be willing to invest. So, so there's a need to basically unlock debt for these type of things. And the final point of this, Krishna, is something called advanced market commitment. This is an important concept that whenever you're talking about transitions, climate transitions or just ag transitions, there's a investment period. So right now, a farmer, why should he change his behavior? He's making a certain income growing something, and someone comes and says, please change your practices, please make it more sustainable, please grow other crops. But there's a risk for him or her. How will they? So if you has a commitment that some buyer says that I guarantee I will offtake your product at such and such price, and you're able to give him some assurance, then some investment can be made to enable that transition. So, so these are the different types of approaches and solutions that can be taken, and one can learn from the example of others. So, for example, in the Western context, in the United States and in Europe, there's large investments being made in regenerative ag precisely because those advanced market commitments are there. There, it's very expensive. My previous firm, we had done a project in, I think, France, working with the whole government of all the different cantonments, right? And the costs there are so high. You can imagine an average French farmer, whatever it is, 20,000, 30,000 euros, and they're trying to encourage these guys to go to organic. So what happens is large companies like Danone and things like that come into the picture and promise to procure, saying 2 years from now, if so much organic product is produced, I promise to buy it at such and such minimum price, right? So these kind of things are kind of happening in Europe and in other countries, but we need to apply that to regenerative ag practices in India. So that's, so we have to understand these financial instruments, and we have to see examples of their use in other countries. And there are these innovations which are happening, which we can apply in India.
So absolutely, I think these are very insightful comments, Kartik. I think all these three instruments, impact bond and debt at a low cost, as well as the market commitment based financing, all these are very useful instruments for Northeast. I am sure NetFee, which is the organization which is asking us to do this particular study, will be taking this seriously, because they are a financing corporation. And they should take these new age instruments very seriously to help the organic farmers within the Northeast pick up these kind of this one. So adding on to the kind of, let's say that today the finance is not existing for organic farming, and which is clear that organic farming itself is an emerging practice. The government of India has recently created certain standards for natural farming, organic farming. They have created a certification system which is called as participatory guarantee system. But all of these are still very nascent compared to the conventional agriculture, which is monoculture based industrial agriculture practices that we have. If you draw a parallel from the textile market, handlooms, which is more eco-friendly and is also this one, used to be criticized that there isn't any standardization in handlooms. The design patterns are not as standardized as the textiles from the mill-made cloths. So today we have the same complaint about organic agriculture, that it is not standardized. But we also know that big brands within the textile industry actually have played around. Like, they said that wrinkle is in. Sometimes they will say wrinkle is bad, and you will say wrinkle free as the clothes. And sometimes you will say wrinkle is in and it's a design, right? Defect can be seen as an effect, and effect can be seen as a defect, right? So it's all a marketing gimmickry that the big companies play around in the textile markets very well. And all the weaknesses, the so-called weaknesses which are there in the handlooms, are used as an advantage to market textiles in the big mills. Now, so therefore, are we as marketeers not able to play around with the psychology of the consumers to educate them in terms of trying to understand that there could be a little bit of less standardization in the organic produce, but it is definitely much better for the planet as well as for the people. So that's the question. Can I ask both Basant and Madhusoodhanan to react? You can choose maybe Madhusoodhanan first and then Basant.
That's a That's a good question actually, and that's the question we deal with almost day in and day out. How to educate the customer about the let's say the eccentricity of the produce, right? One is the seasonality itself. Different seasons you will get different varieties. You will not get the same standardized thing. Once you go organic, right, you will not get the same thing across the time frames. You will not get the same produce, same quality in all the seasons. Then within the season itself, you may get like it may not be very standardized. So these two things, right, are extraordinarily difficult to manage, and to some extent, actually, we have not been able to communicate these effectively to the consumer, because the consumer base is a subset of the large consumer base of the large urban consumer base, which is pretty much used to the standardized stuff which is available in the normal supermarkets, right? So that is the let's say the pool from which the urban consumer comes from, who is already used to a certain standard of quality, certain notions of quality, certain notions of color, etc. So that is the pool from which the organic consumer comes from. He or she is not coming from let's say a consuming class which really doesn't have these kinds of standards, or it doesn't consider these a luxury, right? So this consuming class actually comes from this standard urban class, and it's looking for something extra, something bigger. So the moment the produce is not standardized, right, they think it is inferior. So to communicate quality, how do we communicate that it's not actually low quality? How do you communicate that it's as good as any other? It's probably a question of optics. How do you communicate all this? To a certain extent, right, what we have realized the last 12 years is it's like trying to swim against the tide. Okay, so to a certain extent, you can communicate this. To a certain extent, you can educate your staff to manage these kinds of questions, how to position it, etc. But to a large extent, right, the work needs to be done, I believe, at the sourcing end, where we need to do basic sorting and standardization, right? So it may not be as fine as systematic as in the normal markets. For example, just previously I mentioned apples, right? So most organic farms which deal with apples, right, don't standardize the size of apples. So in the normal market, you will get apples of different sizes. If you take one crate, right, it will be all same size. Another crate will be of smaller size, but the same size again. So that standardization is there. But most organic farms, right, don't standardize the apple size. That size variability, for example, is easy to communicate to the consumer. But if the product has a certain blemish, if the product has a different color, that is difficult to communicate to the consumer. So what we have been trying to do is mostly, right, so we do a lot of workshops with the consumers. We have meetings. We have WhatsApp groups nowadays. We have Facebook where we communicate that, see, this particular thing comes from that particular farm. That farm is in this kind of condition, and this is the kind of produce that is available from this farm. So the moment you try to link it up to the exact place from which it comes, right, then the consumer sort of loosens up. See, buying from a person you know, and buying from opaque entity where it's just a question of give and take is different, right? The consumer, therefore, his heart starts twanging. Okay, there is resonance in his heart about, okay, that particular farmer, that particular place. Then the notion of quality sort of melts down. Okay, so the key, therefore, what we have realized is in giving some kind of visibility, or let's say transparency into where this product comes from. Why is it the way it is? And it's not all that bad, by the way. So this communication, how we do it, how effectively we can do it, or is it at all possible to do it? See, when you are small, you can do many of these things, right? A single store can do many of this. We have 9 stores. Already we are facing some limitations. Imagine a person who has 900 stores. Imagine an organization with like a huge scale, right? Communicating this is a whole new challenge. It's very, very difficult. It's not so easily possible. This kind of very personal kind of communication is very difficult. So therefore, which puts some natural limitations on scale itself when you are dealing with organic produce. Therefore, I still believe, therefore, that the way to go for the producer and people who are dealing with producers, the groups which are dealing at the procurement end, the way to go, therefore, is to try and standardize as much as possible, because only then you can reach a mass market. The moment you don't standardize, you can be a niche individual farm, all right, you will get a small market for that. But the moment you want to do scale, you can't be, you can't really do much, but to follow the practices which are prevailing in the conventional market may not be to the same level, but to a certain extent you need to do it. Otherwise, it will not work. Okay, because the urban consumer has already experienced a certain notion of quality over the last 20-25 years. Okay, this one generation, which is the major organic consuming class in the cities, has already experienced something called quality. What they mean by quality, they are no more the people who are close to the farm. Earlier, for example, in my childhood, I used to buy from a local town shop. I come from a very small town, and most of the times I knew where that particular, let's say I'm buying bitter gourd, I know where the bitter gourd usually comes from. Many times I know it, and I know the seller also. Therefore, my notion of quality, I know that okay, this particular bitter gourd, even if it doesn't look all that nice, it's tasty. All those things are sort of cut off from the urban buying experience today. So, and many of the people, urban consumers nowadays, have shifted en masse to online markets, and there the difficulty is higher actually, because online requires certain kind of standardization. Okay, otherwise you cannot see when people order door delivery, right? The moment they open the box or the bag or whatever, right? It needs to be of a certain visual appeal needs to be there. The moment it is not there, it's rejected. There will be a lot of returns. All those kinds of things will come. As opposed to a customer who is going to the store and picking himself or herself. So these are some of the marketing issues around this. So while the work needs to be done, significantly more work needs to be done in marketing. I believe that that is not the principal focus. The need for focus is in the procurement standardization. That's my thought.
Absolutely, Madhusoodhanan. I completely agree that there is a level of standardization on the production end which has to be achieved, and we have to work with the farmers in terms of helping them to standardize their produce, helping them to standardize, make them self-reliable, make them more transparent, more them certified in terms of production. All of these is there, but just that today's seminar, we want to focus only on the market end. That's the reason why I'm bringing back to the consumer focus on, and so it's insightful that we understand that when we are in organic market, the biggest curse is that there is a constant comparison with the conventional agriculture and produce. So that is what I gathered from your entire answer. And the second thing that I've understood is there is an investment that has to be done, and that investment in terms of educating the consumers, and it would become easier when we have traceability established, because it will allow the consumer to associate and understand the reality of the ground, right? That's what you are trying to tell. So very insightful. Can I ask Basant to react on this? And then I'll come back to Kartik. Kartik, you know very well that Kellogg's, when they wanted to introduce lighter breakfast as a concept in India as well as in Japan or many of the Eastern countries, they had actually invested substantially for long duration of time, right? Absorbing losses and continue to invest before the consumer behaves really changed to lighter breakfast and the lifestyles actually well. So that kind of a financing seems to be required. So I just want you to gather thoughts on how can we finance such kind of this one. So Basant, can you react first before Kartik reacts?
Yes, sure. Now, when we come to marketing of any food product, okay, we have to understand how we get into the market and how we get it to the consumers. Suppose you are marketing something, for example, chewing gum. or chips or wafers, something like that. So for that, a single trial is good enough. I give you a chewing gum, you like the taste, and repeat happens. Correct? Then a marketer understands that, okay, repeat is happening, this product I can take on a full scale to the market now. Correct? Then we come to another category of product, and organic is actually in that category. In a single trial, consumer may not understand that what benefit they are getting. Consumer will not go by what benefit you tell them. It is a very long process telling them, creating that space in the mind, hammering it, and then finally convincing them that you should buy this. That's a very, very, very long process. The most appropriate process is only by consumer trials. And you need to tell consumer that this is what you eat and these are the benefits that you get. So restricting discussion to this initially, the bundle of benefits that's communicated to consumers for organic is that organic is expensive, organic is premium. If you're eating organic, you live a healthy lifestyle. If you're eating organic, you're health conscious and you understand. Now, but visually, we never try to tell them that this is organic and these are the benefits that you should get. We still try to compete with the conventional thing where we try to give them visually good stuff. It cannot happen if you do it organically. Because people who understand it very well, Mandi mein they will go at the end and buy gourd which is not in a good shape, which has insect bite into it, because they understand that, okay, this one doesn't have pesticide. So that consumer needs to understand that these are the benefits they are getting specifically when it comes to the communication. So standard communication must contain that, okay, specific benefits, no pesticide, no this residue which can lead to this, no arsenic which can lead to cancer, something like that. I'm not getting specific here, but that communication needs to be there. Number one. Number two, the trial with the consumer has to be for a long period of time. Like how organic has developed in the West. In the West, European markets or American markets, these guys, they have dedicated segment of organics, and consumer, they just buy it. They keep buying it. They keep buying it. And then they start to realize the difference which is between organic and a conventional produce out there. And they start to adopt that organic. In India, if you draw the parallel, then you all will realize that Big Basket has dedicated a particular shelf for organic products. They are putting organic products. And the best thing that they're doing is they are not charging unnecessary premium. Usually I'll come to this, like I'll come to this also separately. Like when we charge premium, what we do, where do we go wrong, and or should we charge or shouldn't we charge? Correct. Big Basket, they are not charging unnecessary premium on that. There is little premium. Many a times there is actually a discount also. For example, flaxseed. Flaxseed is organic. Avla, gooseberry they call it. Avla is organic. It's naturally organic. Then in conventional section, we charge a lower price. In organic section, I had a higher price. Okay, there's a cost of certification and all that. So that is why, like, that is also another issue which you need to address. But for taste and visual, we don't need to charge those premium which we are charging on that. And we must entice consumer for trial, giving them separately. Like as a consumer, if you look at me, I know the process that they adopt to procure all the organic products. So when I do my shopping on Big Basket, I first go to the organic section, and if I get everything there, I buy it there only. If I don't get, then I move to other section. There is a markable difference in taste, the difference in freshness. You'll have a feel-good factor, but that cannot be felt in a day. It will take time. So this bigger ecosystem, they need to work on this. And this is how the Whole Food and all those retailers in the West, they when they allocated a dedicated shelf for organic product, they're able to develop organic. And I can see Big Basket. If you talk to Big Basket guy who procures organic, he is overburdened now, all of a sudden. And it's likely to spike in days to come because that is the most appropriate way to develop organic.
Okay, so very insightful, Basant. You have told very crucial points. One is we have to encourage consumer to directly taste and try the organic produce. Second,
Yeah,
pricing
Keshav,
has.
one more point I would like to
Yeah,
put here.
yeah.
Okay, like coming to another aspect, like how consumer will trust. Okay, trust on certification, which I mentioned earlier also. Like somebody says that even the authority that okay, this is the certification we are giving and organic, it should be acceptable. NPOP is acceptable, but they don't accept it. They do the quality inspection at the port after arrival and they reject. I know organic people, they say like in export consignment, whatever consignment gets sold, gets passed. Okay, it's passes through the screening of customer. There they make money, and that compensates for all the rejections. Now, handling rejection is a huge issue. You go get something rejected at some port in Europe, then either you bring it back, which is not a good option, or you sell it as conventional there. So that is a huge cost associated with it. Now, what happens is the certification part, we do focus on that. That is correct. But as I said in introductory discussion also, that certification has to be according to customers. If we are supplying to a big retailer in Europe, we can have partnership with them. We can have their screening, their quality control at our production. Correct. Like there is an example. There's a guy doing mentha in Bareilly or Muradabad, I suppose. Okay, they have partnered with a UK-based firm, and that firm operates as a partner. So this guy's job is to do contract farming, managing the processes locally, managing the farmers, all those things. Quality aspect is completely monitored by the UK-based company, and then only it is shipped from the farm. If it doesn't conform to the quality, then it gets sold locally only. So see, they are saving a huge money which would have been incurred if they would not have done like this. Now, you compare this with all the certification that exists. So these guys who are planning certification, who are working on certification, they need to understand it that whenever we talk of a product, the product is meant for the consumer. It's not for the producer. We have to understand that. Because everywhere, any discussion that happens, people come that, okay, farmer, they are doing this, farmer, they are doing that. Let us help them do what consumers want. Let's give them the market orientation. It's not that there is no market for sada hua cheese or bad things. Everything has a market. We must help them work on the things accordingly. So certification, part of it, it needs to be relooked. Consumers, it needs to reach to a stage where consumers actually start trusting it. Not that certifying agencies gets blacklisted. That news, if comes, okay, which has come recently, will push the things back by 10 years or a decade. How somebody can appreciate the certification, the integrity of the certification, when the certifying agency itself gets blacklisted for not doing things correctly. So this needs to be understood, and accordingly the certification process needs to be looked at, and we need to advise everybody, all the agencies, with this perspective. Okay, yeah, KG, please.
Yeah, so just to summarize what you had very insightfully said is that on the consumer side, what you're trying to say is that pricing is an important way to communicate to the consumers. And you're saying that premium pricing may actually is affecting the in encouraging consumers to use organic produce and see what is the benefits that are happening. And that's the only way we can gain confidence of the consumers, by allowing them to try and do a trial and move forward. And you're also saying that there is a spike in demand for organic produce, but it also depends on how we are able to communicate about organic produce much distinctly from the conventional agriculture. And lastly, I think you emphasized on quality assurance as a process rather than quality certification and audits, which are used as a mechanism to eliminate. So assurance is a mechanism where you look at a marketeer as a partner, and the marketeer consistently communicates what is the quality expected at the delivery, and therefore in an assurance process, you will ensure that greater wealth can be transferred back to the farmers. So very insightful. So Kartik, can you look at the kind of challenge that we have in marketing? So if you look at the kind of challenge, it looks like not just the production end, which requires patient capital, but it also looks like even consumer markets require investments which are patient in nature. So how do we actually achieve this?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think this, just building upon what Mr. Mishra was saying, uh, and what all of you guys were saying, the issues of standardization, willingness to pay, and trust you have spoken about, right? Now, earlier in organic, the willingness to pay issue was there. If you go like 10 years back, or however many years back, that has changed. I remember as investors, people used to say, why should we invest in organic when people are not willing to pay the extra premium? But now that is changing in India. So in the last X number of years, 3, 5, 2 years, whatever that trend is, a lot of things have changed. A lot of food processing companies are coming in, a lot of consumers, at least at the middle class level. So that is changing. But that being said, the structural inequities and challenges in our economy remain at the demand side. Uh, a big one is warehousing, for staples and grains. At Avishkar, we invested in a company called Ergos, which is a grain bank. So many, times when the grains are produced, the price goes down because there's an oversupply. But if you could store it and sell it slowly over time, you could realize more. So storage. Then another one, all aspects of distribution. There's another company called Loop Technologies, again in Eastern India and Bihar or Jharkhand, and all they do is the distribution of the product from the village to the mandi to help the farmer figure out the highest price. So these could be like small differences of like 1 or 2 rupees, but every day they'll say, okay, this mandi has got the right price. So, so these are technologies and business models to help maximize. There's so many things, right? And here we're just talking about staples. The minute you get into fruits and vegetables, then you have all kinds of additional issues around, cold chain, storage, wastage, perishability, what have you. So that's there. Then there's issues around the channel, that should you be selling it to B2C, B2B, to Horeca? How do you do value maximization on that? So again, I mean, I'll say this. Yes, these are challenges, but the fact that people like me who know nothing about agri, right, who come from a finance background, at least now know some of this is good. It shows that the agri-tech sector has grown. And earlier we just said, oh, something in agri. Now people start understanding these different segments. Like we start to understand. So some investors are only focusing on front-end market linkage. They say, I believe in that. So they want to, some investors, let's be honest, say, I don't believe there's much of an impact thesis there. I want to focus more on the input side. So different investors will have a different thesis. Let's just be honest, based either on the financial return or sometimes on the impact thesis. At Asha Impact, we had taken the view that the equation from a farmer is, price of the product minus the input cost minus the labor and agricultural productivity. So we said, okay, agricultural productivity and labor we cannot influence. That's Manrega and all of those things. Price also we can't influence. That's MSP and macro factors. We can influence input cost. So let's focus on that. So that was one theory. Some other investors will have a theory that no, market linkage is much bigger. Yes, the margins are thinner, but I want to focus on the scale. The kind of investors who have built Big Basket, which was being talked about, right? So I think that point needs to be taken, that the market of investment is now more sophisticated. It's not just earlier, if you are an agri investor, that itself was a differentiation, which is good. A fund like Omnivore was set up maybe 10, 15 years ago. Now there's 7, 8, 10 agri dedicated funds in India, just impact funds. And I'm not even talking about philanthropy and such. I'm talking about just the commercial stuff, Rabobank and all. But this didn't exist 5 years ago, right? Post-COVID, sorry, I'm laying all these points out. Post-COVID, one good thing that happened was that many traditional investors now said we were more like impact investors because ag along with education and healthcare became the dominant themes. Earlier, they were considered esoteric themes. कि main sectors होता है और side पे कुछ agriculture, healthcare, education होता है. after COVID, people realized that these are the main themes, that this is where the growth is happening. So all of these good changes are happening. People are starting to see agriculture as a mainstream investment sector. People are starting to bifurcate and look at segments and starting to understand the challenges. Organic, as we were talking about, people are willing to pay. So these are all very, very good things. And finally, people are also looking at impact now. So even after all these business issues, they're saying, oh, if a company like ALS is able to transfer more of the surplus to farmers, we want to look at investing in that company. So I'm cautiously optimistic that these are kind of like an inflection point and good times for more capital to flow into this space and to look at some of these challenges on the front side. Sorry, that was a bit of a broader answer, Krishna, beyond just the challenges in marketing.
Yeah.
But I wanted to add those
No,
points.
but they're very useful. I think I will pick up 2 or 3 dimensions that you actually brought in trying to expand the discussion. But I still want to insist to you to answer on, is the patient capital available for market development, especially around consumer education and all those things? Is there such kind of capital available, and what kind of a capital is available?
No, you're right. I mean, I'm saying all the positive things. I should also focus on the challenges. There is a genuine challenge of genuine patient capital, okay? I think to be very honest, we talk about impact investment, but often the impact is missing, and people accuse the industry of impact washing or greenwashing. You must have heard about this, right? That this word impact and sustainability, everyone is just like using it. So the measurability, the credibility, the preciseness of it is important. And I like how you framed it. The need for genuinely patient capital. So if we call ourselves impact investors, what does it even mean? We're just investors, 10-year fund, 25% IRR. So I'm calling it impact, but I'm seeking commercial returns. So first is impact investors need to be held to higher standards, right? 25% is a high return, 0% is a low return. But between 0 and 25, there's a lot of room to play. So ideally, it should be to take slightly lesser financial return for more impact, or the longer time horizon, right? If 10 years is a VC fund time horizon, patient capital should be 15 years on the fund cycle. If the VC fund is for 6 years, there should be 8 years. So lower return expectation, higher tenure, but with lower risk also. And to use some of that capital for ecosystem building activities. That it's not just directly the investment, but educating the market and all. So yes, there are more and more initiatives that are doing this. There's some availability of grant capital for market and ecosystem building, and I think that's very, very important. You have industry associations like Impact Investors Council. You've got things like Ag Next, and these kind of what you guys are doing right here, right? What is this? This is an example of an ecosystem building of these things. But you're right. This should be more capital. NABARD or whoever, CII could be having discussions on this. So yes, Krishna, I think there's a need for more ecosystem building.
Yes. Before I ask the next question, I just would like to encourage audience to put in their questions into the chat box, and I would be happy to take 1 or 2 questions as we move forward. But and therefore, please, everyone use the chat box and post your questions on the chat box. I would meanwhile ask this question, which Kartik has brought in the dimension of saying that which is the channel which is most effective in terms of for the organic produce? Is it Horeca or B2C or B2B? Which is the kind of approach that one has to take? And what is the kind of what is the real decision there? What is the kind of margins? What are the kind of costs involved? So I have to, okay, why don't Basant start?
Yeah, KG. Actually, when we come to channel, see, this what Kartik was talking was the exact thing which is required. The patient's capital is very much needed in this particular sector so that the entrepreneurs, they can sustain. Because this is not, see, a company launches Pulse, which is a candy. It becomes a 100 crore brand in 8 months. You cannot have an organic product with a little bit premium, which is the cost of certification and handling and those testing and those kind of things. 100 crore, becoming 100 crore in 8 months. It may take 8 years for that particular product to reach 100 crores. So that persistence is very much required in this particular sector. This actually reinforces my earlier point. And food business is all about trial. It's only about trial, because until unless it confers to the taste of the customer's palate, it will not work. You give them anything. When you go fishing, you cannot give them rasgulla. Correct. So rasgulla may be very good, but the fish will not take it. You need to put the appropriate bait out there, and the bait that suits the palate of the fish. So the thing is, customer needs to understand that yes, the taste is better for this particular product, this particular segment, and this has to be pumped in continuously. So if the trial goes for 6 months to 1 year, then only customer will be able to understand the benefits of it. Green gram, you soak in the water, correct? If it is organic, you will not see any discoloration. You will not see anything bad coming out, any froth coming out, any say offensive taste into it, if it is organic. But if it is conventional, there might be so many impurities, all those things which you will feel that, okay, it was colored. The pesticide was sprayed at the last moment to bring out the color into it. Correct. So those things customer will notice only by a repeated trial and the experience over a longer period of time. So that is the first thing that needs to be done for organic products. Correct. So channel for this is where the trial can happen. We are targeting a particular set of consumers only for this. Organic is considered to be a niche product for somebody who is willing to spend premium. Correct. Now we can give them a basket of organic product which are affordable. We can give them amla, everybody eats. Okay, and when somebody flax, everybody eats. Ragi, everybody is trying to understand the benefits. Ragi, in fact, people in my village, they refuse to give me. That no, ye tumhare khane ka cheez hai nahi. You're not supposed to eat this. You eat rice, you eat wheat. Correct? But people are paying premium out here. So we have to develop an affordable basket which ensures the footfall. Exclusive stores are the best ideas for this. And in that exclusive store, we need to have an affordable basket which ensures the footfall. Big Bazaar, Reliance, all these guys, they give you onion at 5 rupees, potato at 2 rupees, sugar at 9 rupees. Correct? So you go to buy there. Now you buy that, and that you get at that price that ensures the footfall. That is the marketing expense. Correct? And once the consumer goes inside, the bill is around 600 to invoice amount is 600 to 1200. So this 30 rupees product that consumer takes, okay, the store loses around 15 to 20 rupees. But on the rest 1100 rupees, the store earns around 200 rupees. So we have to ensure the footfall, and we have to have dedicated places telling them that this is where you get organic. That consistency is required. So the best channel is not through somebody who has diversified interest, but as Madhusoodhanan was talking about the dedicated stores. So that is the best channel to do. That is the best way to do. Maybe in a small place, we can have dedicated shelf for this organic. And that is how we need to promote that. And we need to have it on a sustainable basis for long term, so that the trial is there and repeat starts happening. And along with that, we need to build a basket of affordable offerings for them. Whatever is affordable. If something is not affordable, don't put it like that. Put it in premium. Okay, let the people who want to buy that, let them buy it. But affordable product, like it can be natural rice or other products which consumers buy, they come to buy.
So what I get to gather from you, Basant, is first you are saying that pricing, you are actually now telling it second time, pricing has to be optimized and it has to be affordable premium, not the super premiums that the organic stores are
No,
trying
I'm
to
not
do.
telling it to blanket, KG.
Yeah.
I'm telling that there are few things which can be made available to consumers at affordable price. Okay.
That will give the footfall.
Let's ensure the footfall through that. And
Yes.
then let them try the other things. Because
Yeah.
without trial, you cannot expect consumer to adopt some product. Just by
Correct.
telling that you eat this, eat this. Eating is a very strong habit. People adhere to it.
Yeah.
Like jo khata hai, they don't leave it. So
Absolutely. So basically, and you are saying that investing on dedicated shops for the organic produce is key, because that will give this one. While we might be present in other markets through smaller shelves and all those things, we have to have
correct.
dedicated stores, and that's where I think.
Consumer needs to understand the dedicated location where they get organic. Because see, when there is a developing market, there are few people and there are few suppliers. There are few buyers, few suppliers. So they need to understand. Suppose I want to buy Center Fresh chewing gum. I go to any pawn shop and it's lying there. Correct. Lay's chips, anywhere. But for organic, if there are not too many customers, so there are not too many sellers also. So the dedicated place tells me that, okay, if I go there, then I get it. That's a
Yes.
must. Correct.
Yeah.
So it has to be dedicated, the channel, and that affordability factor has to be told to consumer.
Yeah. Okay, so I would want Madhusoodhanan to react on this. I think you have been running dedicated stores, but do you also depend on Horeca and B2B while you also sell it through the B2C in the directed stores? That's the first thing. And second, I also want you to react on this pricing premium. So organic today is being considered as super premium products. And is it really the cost like that, or is it that the marketeers are using it to make quick money?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the first question. What was the first question?
I'm saying organic, many stores today are selling it at super premium. Maybe there are.
Yeah, I thought that was the second question. I thought you asked something before that.
Before that, I was asking was that you are running dedicated stores for the organic produce. Do you also do simultaneously B2B and Horeca? And is it required, or what has been your experience in those two channels? And that was the first question. And the second question is
What do you mean, Horeca? What is that? B2B?
the hotels and restaurants and other organizations.
Okay, all right, okay. See, about B2B, B2C, all that, right? See, we are specializing in B2C. We deal almost 90% of our business is B2C. There is a small segment, there is something like 10%. We do deal with a lot of B2B. That is, we sell to sometimes to some ashrams and mutts which are very particular on getting certain kind of produce. Then we sell to some gourmet restaurants, okay, which deal with, you get a great dining experience in those places. Those kinds of restaurants, they want a particular kind of chili powder. The potency of organic spices is well known, especially people who are using it will know it. So they want organic turmeric powder, organic chili powder, organic masalas, those kinds. So, but that is a relatively smaller part of our business. See, the major consuming class is, the organic consuming class is sort of overlaps with the traditional conservative class. Okay, so that is something very interesting too, especially in the south. Okay, and that is probably the reason organic has taken off much more in the south, let's say Bangalore and Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, and to a great extent in Hyderabad too. So southern states, all the big brands will tell you southern states account for like a real major chunk of their sales. See, the point I'm trying to make is there is a sort of overlap between the conservative class and the organic class, because the conservative class worries about how the food is, what is the traditional food habits, eating at home, all those, the kind of people who eat majorly at home will buy organic. The kind of people who see in urban consumers, you would see higher amount of eating out, especially in people where the families, both parents are working, so they tend to eat out a bit more, in which case the organic consumption comes down. Okay, so the reason I'm telling you this is because is that B2C for a retailer like us, right? And also we have our own brand too. B2C is a major market because of these reasons. B2B, that is selling to restaurants or hotels, is very small because many of them are not bothered about it. Especially when you sell to hotels, right? Big hotels, I'm saying, cost. Cost is the major, most important thing for most hotels. They are not worried really that much about the quality. I mean, I can just tell you anecdotally, right, that a friend of mine runs is a vegetable wholesaler in the wholesale market in Chennai, not organic. Okay, so he sells his best quality to the retailers, and he sells his worst quality to the big hotels. Okay, so the reason for this is hotels that they have purchase team and they have certain cost parameters, and organic is very difficult to fit in those. Okay, only restaurants, fine dining restaurants, which are typically owner driven, right? It's not a chain. Probably that owner has 1 or 2 restaurants. So where they are very particular about the kind of ingredients they are using because the clientele wants it, that is a very small market. So that is the first question. Second thing about the premium, etc. Right? See, it's a very good point made by Basant ji. Actually, that see, organic need not be that premium. Okay, should not be as premium as it's being priced even in our stores, for example. So we have tried various kinds of things. Something like similar to what he said. We have tried something like giving rice at cost. Okay, so, which will bring in the footfalls for us, and hopefully people get used to it. Like you said, organic food, right? It takes, in case of staples especially, it will take at least 5-6 months before you realize the difference that this food is different from the food which I'm eating, which I ate before, or which I'm eating outside somewhere else. It takes 5-6 months in case of staples. In case of fresh produce, it could be fruits, vegetables, milk, ghee, butter. It could be eggs. The difference in taste and quality and flavor can be very easily, quickly appreciated by the consumer. Just first or second trial, they'll know the difference, that this is different. This is much better. I feel better. The taste is better. Flavor is better. That is very quickly they will know. So what we have tried to do is we have tried to do this in a sustained campaign, like let's say 6 months or 10 months. We give rice at a certain rate to increase our footfalls, to encourage trial. All those we have done, but that has not been a sustained marketing strategy. Actually, we have been doing it one-off. Suddenly 1 month we do, then we go back to the normal pricing, all that. Because see, there is the reason for the super premium, right? In many of the organic stores are multiple. One is it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem, right? See, the volumes which are driven by organic only stores are much lower than the volumes which are driven by even a conventional supermarket, which is doing reasonably well. Okay, so the volume difference is there. Therefore, the transportation cost is a big chunk of the end cost. It's a big percentage. Okay, it's not small. So when that happens, right, the naturally the tendency to push the prices up, because the transportation handling costs are much up, because our volumes are low, and because of the price is high, because we are charging a premium, our volumes are low. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, and people like us, we are just self-funded small company, right? So we do it in our own small way. Sometimes we try to price it cheap and run. We have not done it sustainably because we don't have the money to do it. But like you pointed out, if there is patient capital in building this ecosystem, if somebody is able to do that, that will greatly zoom up the market size. It will greatly increase the market size, because organic need not be that expensive. It is expensive because of these kinds of reasons. Okay, the actual premium at the farm gate end probably is like 10-20%. Okay, sometimes there's not even a premium. Sometimes the farmer is just assured of a certain minimum price, whereas in the traditional conventional channels, sometimes what happens, right? For example, he also mentioned the price of tomatoes, for example, come down to 5 rupees a kg, something like that. It doesn't even cover the harvesting cost of the farmer many times. So organic usually, at least it doesn't go below a certain point, the farm gate price. So so because of those, so the point I'm trying to raise is the farm gate end, the premium the farmer gets is probably 10-20% on an average. I'm saying 10-20%. In some produce it may be much higher, also 30-40%. But average you would find 20% only. Okay, but the end product, okay, when the urban consumer buys organic produce, with respect to urban consumer buying normal produce in a conventional supermarket, it will be much higher. The premium would probably be even 40-50%. Because of the handling cost, the low volumes, the transportation cost goes up, all those things are there actually. So it's a bit of a complex problem, requires a sustained intervention in only then it is possible to actually break this. That is what I feel. Okay, so there is also there is also another issue in this whole thing. See, the thing is the number always demand supply trumps everything, right? So authentic organic vegetable producers, right, are very, very low in number, very small in number. Okay, so but there is a high urban demand, and the demand supply naturally finds its own price. So so the price is high because demand is high, but the supply is relatively low because the enough work has not been done in certain categories of produce in hand-holding the farmers, in ensuring that organic produce happens. So that also is there. That leads to that premium.
Thank you, Madhusoodhanan. Very insightful, both Basant's and yours, this one, that the emphasis should be on dedicated stores. And in dedicated stores, we should be able to play around with pricing. You also clearly stated that premium pricing need not be there. But you are also saying that supply chain is not standardized. Therefore, you are pushed to look at premium pricing. And one more thing which you very insightfully said is that what the farmer is looking is for an assured price. Unlike in conventional agriculture, where you are trying to look at substantial variation in prices, even as an organic producer, if you give a assured price and with 10-20% premium, you are still doing a great favor to the overall system, both for the producer as well as the consumer in terms of creating wealth, and also at the same time preserving the planet's wealth, which is about soil and water. So very nice to understand.
Just one more point probably I will try to add. See, various models of purchasing from farmers we have tried. What we have found that really works is this, that is, you look at the conventional market price and give a premium over it. Rather than coming up with a particular number, right? Let's say this 20 rupees or 50 rupees or 100 rupees, rather than giving a particular number, what really works in the long term is a premium to the normal market produce. If it is assured to the farmer with a base, with a floor, price should not go below, let's say, 20 rupees for tomatoes or something like that. That is what works. See, what happens many a case, right? In our country, contracts are almost unenforceable. The nature of the contracts are such, the judiciary is such. I mean, it's quite impossible to enforce contracts. So there is really no point in doing a long-term contract with, for a person like me at least, a long-term contract of okay, I'll buy at this price, because what really happens is when the market price goes down, you can be assured that the farmer will give to you. When the market price goes up, you can be assured the farmer will not give to you. Okay, even if the agreement is signed and all that. So what really works in the Indian conditions is what I find really works is the conventional market plus 20% or something like that, some with a floor. That works for as a procurement principle.
Yes. So very nice. So can I get Kartik's reaction? I will take, there are some 3-4 questions which have come in the chat and I will take, but I will first offer the question to Kartik and maybe he gathers his thought on that before we take one question in the chat. So Kartik, I think the question I would like to ask you is that, you know, like conventional agriculture requires farmer to be financed, the supply chain to be financed, the market infrastructure to be financed, which is value addition infrastructure and storage godowns to be financed. And of course, the marketing process to be financed, which is like, you know, setting up retail chains, looking at advertising and all those things. And therefore, the end-to-end finance of agriculture is required and technology is a small element. And as you said, most of the investments today are focused only on technology and on few cities and few places, and it is not looking at the comprehensive finance. Now, and conventional agriculture has dealt with this in a particular way. I know you know that the priority sector lending takes care of the farmers' crop cycle finance, and rest of the finance, the private industries are making the investments into all these value addition infrastructure, marketing infrastructure through equity and debt. Now, if you look at a comparison for organic agriculture, and all of these stages have to be again financed. It is not that they are not to be financed in organic agriculture. In fact, you have an additional layer. Farmer has to adopt to organic agriculture. Therefore, it requires 3 years consistent finance. So only crop cycle finance is not enough. You require a 3-year cycle finance to farmer to ensure that the behavioral change happens. Then the second layer is building market infrastructure of an appropriate scale. We cannot use the conventional agriculture scale, but you have to use an appropriate scale to look at organic produce to be processed. And many of these machinery, like which are used in the conventional agriculture, may not be required. For example, if you go to rice, they use sortex, which is to standardize all the rice into a super polished rice in white way. That is the way consumer wants it. But if you go to conventional organic agriculture, we are fine. We are fine to have multiple grades of rice, unpolished rice, which doesn't require a sortex to be used. So you can actually optimize investments. An appropriate scale of investment is required. And then the market investment, which is also, we saw that we require patient capital here. So I just want you to gather thoughts that if you are NEDFI, because NEDFI is the Northeastern Development Finance Corporation. That means it has an ability to finance the development process of organic agriculture. And if you are probably given 500 crores, what kind of products or structures will you invest into these 500 crores? That's what I want you to react. So you can take your time. I'll give you 2-3 minutes, and I'll meanwhile ask a question to the market players.
Sure. No, happy to address that, Krishna.
Okay, then go ahead. No issue.
I think I like how you framed that. That's a great way of framing it, because there's many issues we can talk about. But then if you say if there was a 500 crore fund, how would it be spent? Look, I think there's multiple ways to think about it, but broadly, I would say 3 things. One part of it would be for ecosystem support. So much of that we spoke about. So grants to help build the market and for information and all. But the core of it would be for equity support to startups who are working specifically in the region. And the third component could be blended finance. I think there are some good number of startups working in this. One example I remember from many years ago is in Sikkim, a company called Parvata Foods. And Sikkim is, I think, is a mostly organic state and so forth. This is a very small company that was focusing on one particular product. I don't know what it was, and producing it in Sikkim and shipping it to Delhi. Our Honorable Prime Minister mentioned them in Man Ki Baat and things like that. So there's many examples of startups like that, and there's a need for startup funding to go to those kind of companies. In the Northeast, what we see is, to be honest, and I've been associated with the Northeast in many ways over the many years. I even run something called Himalayan Venture Fund and Foundation, where I make angel investments and I fund NGOs in different states of North India, not just Northeast, but in Ladakh, in Jammu, in Srinagar, in Nepal, in Bhutan, even in Pakistan and Afghanistan. So I've actually been quite active in investing in angel investments in frontier markets. So in the Northeast, there's a lot of capital available from the state government to do things. There also needs to be a local connect. You can't just have people like me coming from outside to invest in Northeast. You need people from the Northeast. In fact, it's amazing we're talking about this. I'm sorry, I've been a little bit distracted on WhatsApp, because one of my friends, who Krishna also knows well, Mr. Anuj Sharma, is right now in Shillong doing a workshop at IIM Shillong, working with entrepreneurs and stuff. So you need to develop entrepreneurs and partners there. So IIM Shillong, this is one example. There's Nehu, there's many others. Great universities are existing in Northeast. It's a hub of education. So a tie-up between universities and capital is also important, right? Because you need local leaders. One of the problems outside investors sometimes say is that, why should I invest? I'm using Northeast as an example, but the same thing can apply for Nepal or Himachal Pradesh or something, in any mountain region. I need local people to run those companies and be partners. So these are some of the key pillars, supporting equity, having local partnerships with universities and entrepreneurs, and leveraging the strong investor interest in climate resilient ag, and a lot of global funding is now flowing into climate. So earlier, the interest in this was a bit less. Now there's a lot of European global impact investors who are asking this question. This is an important point. We're sitting here in India, right? Which is a mixed country. It's a low income, middle income, and high income country all in one. We have a Luxembourg sitting here, and we also have like an Ivory Coast. So the outside world is now looking at us as a medium income country. Many developing people are turning off the tap. They say, why should I give it? India has so many rich people. I'd rather give it to some smaller African nation, right? But the truth is, we've got rich people, but we've also got poor people, right? So therefore, many donors are saying, I'm not just going to invest in India. If I'm investing in India, I'm only going to invest in LIS, low income states, only LIS. No more investment in South India and West India. Many investors are saying that. I'll only invest in Hindi belt. Or some investors are saying, I'll only invest in Northeastern states or only in tribal regions. So bifurcating where the underserved parts of India are, and building ecosystems there. And this is how NetFee needs to think about it, because earlier in the last 7-8 years, many of these initiatives around people went, okay, I'm being very honest and blunt here. People went and tried to set things up, but they failed because of corruption or because of some other issue. They gave up. They said, "Humko nahi karne ka." But that was a long time ago. Those same investors, that same interest is still there. So if the governments from the Northeast now, in a more professional way, go and reach out to those same funders and say, look, boss, come. I'm sorry I'm speaking so much. Last example I'll give on this is something that we did at Asha Impact, Punjab Innovation Mission, right? If some of you guys may know about it. Asha Impact, which is my previous firm where I was a CEO, is a private think tank and impact funder. Okay, we invest in startups. They were based in New Delhi. So we said, let's work with the Punjab government, with the chief minister himself, right? The previous government, Mr. Amrinder Singh, and now the new government, the AAP government. And my former boss, Pramod Basant, proposed to the chief minister this idea of Punjab Innovation Mission, which was how do we support 100 small startups in Punjab? Okay. So we said, we will bring the capital. We will raise like 100 crores or even more than that from the top 20 Punjabi businessmen in the world. The head of MasterCard and all these famous people. Similarly, you can imagine creating a pool of funding from all the top people from Northeast. Many of them are quite successful in Delhi and in New York and all of that. So we create that private fund, saying we will invest it, provided that the government creates the right environment. Everything. If you make, and very strict, you tell the government, no corruption, nothing, less taxes. All of these startups that we invest in, I'm sorry I'm being so blunt here, but that's the problem in the Northeast sometimes. That sometimes the government will take the development money but have other conditions. Whereas the development funders will tell them, look, we're not some businessmen who are here to make a profit. We are here to help your region. So if you ask for even 1 rupee, we're not going to do it, right? So the government has to figure out and understand that this is development money, and a lot of money can come into these regions if you just do it in a professional way. And that interest is very much there from investors. And it's the ecosystem enablers like Krishna and the others on the call, Anuj, and others who can actually make that happen. This was not happening because examples of you guys weren't there. The investors say, "Kisme dalega paisa?" I need to see those projects. So now those projects are starting to come. So the institution builders can create these funds, and it's a great idea, right? The idea to create a NetFee fund for Northeast has always been there. But the investors will say, hey, it's too much risk, I don't want to do it. Now the institutional aspects are starting to happen. So as long as the government is willing to address a few key issues, it's very much possible.
Thank you, Kartik. The marketeers, I want them to wear the hat of NetFee, and as a financiers, if you are given the 500 crore fund, as I've asked Kartik, both of you can answer where would you like to invest and what kind of products do you invest in for encouraging organic agriculture in Northeast? Madhusoodhanan, please go ahead.
Yeah. I think what I would really look at are a couple of things. The first is in building capacity to deal with thousands of farmers. And what I really mean is you need to have these farmer groups, not necessarily farmer producer companies, but we need to be able to have farmer groups and capacity, that is human capacity, human resources, able to manage these farmer groups in whatever format. It could be a farmer producer company, it could just be an NGO dealing with individual farmers. So I would want to invest in creating that capacity. That is first. Second, I would want to invest in hard infrastructure, that is warehouses, cold storage, processing units across a variety of food produce. You can choose what is it that the market wants and focus on those. And because the warehouses and cold storage, etc., may need to be customized to the produce also. It may not be one thing for one kind of infrastructure for all produce. So you need to be really careful about it and choose, let's say, 10 crops and do it for those. So that would be the second. The third would be the subsidizing the farmers for the initial 3 years, if they are not already organic, especially. You need to be hand-holding them, being with them, dealing with the crop failures for the first few years. So some kind of subsidy, some kind of monetary plowback is required to manage that. So those three are the main things I would really focus on from a perspective of the Northeast fund kind of thing. So see, the marketing part of it, once this is done, right, the place where the market is, people will come searching for you. So the investment in marketing may not be the most significant thing. If the capacity is there, see, people are always looking for better business opportunities, right? So where the market is, the marketer will come searching for it. That particular organization or a company which has the capability to sell will come searching. So the real thing to do is to create these capacities.
Thank you very much, Madhusoodhanan. Basant, can you react on this?
Yes. Now I'll try and come through the example which I said at the very outset, that it has to be a participatory approach, and I'm actually trying to build something like that. So what happens is, see, everybody takes care of different aspect of it. A marketer like Madhusoodhanan runs a chain of stores, correct? He focuses on stores, brand, consumer, market, those kind of things. Then there are his suppliers who work at farm, aggregation, production, processing, and those kind of stuff, correct? But what happens is, most of the time, a disconnect develops. We are too focused on what we are doing, not trying to understand how other guy is delivering. A producer fails to understand how a marketer will sell the product. Like in one of the training I said कि onion का 3 quality में grading करना पड़ेगा. You know, like sub 25 mm, then 25, 55 mm, and bumper like 55 plus mm. Instant, all the females they reacted. नहीं sir, हमारे यहाँ 3 नहीं होता है, 2 ही होता है. Everybody blanket. Now, the producer need to understand what market wants. And marketer at the same time needs to understand that participating with producers, how they can derive the efficiency. There are so many people running online stores. They'll pack something and sell on the online and they'll make profit. But they keep making profit only on 10 units or 15 units, where the potential for them is to make on 1,000 units, 2,000 units. Because they don't work on efficiency in sourcing. They'll buy from the neighboring shop, they'll pack it and sell it. So, this inflates the chain at the first place, and at the second place, doesn't actually give the feel to buying side as well as supply side. Now, what happens is, we need to address the complete ecosystem in this. In Odisha, I recently conducted a buyer-seller meet. Now there, I had invited a buyer who expertises in bulk procurement. Like they can go somewhere and procure, say, 50,000 tons of maize. I had shared with KG this particular instance. So there, NABARD was the agency who maintains those FPOs for whom this buyer-seller meet was done. Now we have given a very specific proposal to NABARD that see there is a working capital constraint, so you need to provide working capital to FPOs. Okay, this is the company which will procure 50,000 metric tons of maize. They said, no, you tell the quality, FPO will supply. I said, in whole of the life, these farmers, they have never understood the quality. That is where the aggregators whom normally referred to as in a bad way, they make money. That they tell them quality mein ye problem hai, this is the problem with the quality, that is the problem with the quality, and so I'm deducting this money. Correct. So quality they will not understand. We will make the video, we will circulate it, and they have to convert to that quality. Then they said okay. And finally, after lot of iterations, it came to the conclusion, the CGM NABARD said that okay, other financing to FPOs may take 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. But for this particular project, we need to clear that in 1 week so that FPOs have money. They pay to the farmer next day. This guy is able to procure. And this guy, while setting up all this operation, the plan is there to recruit locals who can be trained to run a collection center, who can be trained to learn the segregation or quality management of the produce, all the aspect of it, all the aspect of supply chain, which has to be managed locally, the warehousing and all. So, like in this, the most critical funding was that working capital fund so that the buyer is at ease, the seller is at ease, farmer gets the money immediately. Okay, first thing. Second thing, developing that local ecosystem in a part, they have to hire somebody, they have to train somebody, why not to hire local people for godown management and those kind of stuff. Correct. So it is not that where will you put money? It cannot be defined. There are, when you trace the supply value chain of any commodity, then you have many value drivers. Okay, you have to identify the inefficiencies at those points, and you need to like unlock the value at that particular point which drives the value in the ecosystem. I mean, value chain of the commodity. So similarly for organic, it may be at marketing end, it may be at sourcing end, or it may be at transportation end. For Northeast, the biggest challenge is transportation. It is like the product may cost 2 rupees, but transporting it to Guwahati itself may cost 12 rupees, 15 rupees, 20 rupees. How do you manage that? So you have to keep working on that. You have to come out with a solution. Then only somebody can get money, which is due to the person, be it on demand side or be on the supply side. So I don't think there is a straight answer on this where I will put the money. But of course, if it is commodity, it will be very product specific. Perishables, spices, grains, all behave in a very different way, very different way. This cannot be put together. Okay. And basis the gap in value chain, I would deploy the money. But the thing is, it has to be participatory. All the ends need to understand the pain of other part. Without that, it will not happen.
Yes, thank you very much. I think
sorry, just one off-the-cuff remark. Not a comprehensive remark like Basantji said, but just off-the-cuff thing. See, an example I noticed somewhere is a long time ago when we used to procure apples from Ladakh, right? The transportation problem was solved because there was a subsidy for transportation of apples from that particular place to the urban centers of India. So a similar kind of model, if at all it can be worked out, where there is a transportation corridor, which is sort of subsidized by either by grants or by the government, and which will allow individual producers to sort of rent out that corridor, and they would find their own market linkages in the consuming centers. So that the transportation cost is sort of taken care of. So the transportation corridor idea may be something to look at.
Or better than that, I would say, like, just one minute, I'll just respond to what Madhusoodhanan said. I'd say, see, for example, you're procuring, say, might be a basket of vegetables from, say, 5 villages, correct? Now, what you can do is you identify a distributor in your place who is selling FMCG product to that area. He must be sending his van every day, correct? So that reverse transportation will work wonderful out there. So this kind of solution doesn't need any subsidy, doesn't put any obligation on anybody, but it makes pure commercial sense for everybody in the value, and it saves money for everybody. So, this kind of solution we need to find out. This
Okay.
will be sustainable. Sustainable,
Yeah.
this will last forever.
Yes. Yes. So partnering with the existing supply chain solutions is
Yeah,
also
the
a very
complete
key.
ecosystem needs to be involved, uske andar.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we have just have the last 13 minutes or so of this particular workshop, consultation workshop, we've already had several insights from all the three of you, but we will quickly answer the questions which are there in the chat box. The first question is that in the context of Northeast, though many farmers are practicing natural farming over decades, the market for the produce is not established. What should be the approach to develop market for such situations, considering the specific challenges there? So Madhusoodhanan or Basant, can you react? Or even Kartik can react if you have any answers around how do we develop market for the specifically for the Northeastern produce? Who would want? Kartik, would you like to react on this?
Actually, I would love to
Okay,
listen
please,
from Kartik.
please.
Yeah.
Oh, Kartik. Okay, you want to listen from Kartik. Kartik, why
Yes,
don't you?
yes, yes, yes.
Kartik,
Yeah,
are you
hi.
there?
Hi,
Yeah.
sorry, my video's off. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, I think how do we build markets in the Northeast? I think some elements
For
of
the
this we
Northeast
covered, right?
produce. For Northeastern produce.
For produce. Oh, okay. Um, Look, I think the elements of it we spoke about, right? Capital is a big one.
Yeah.
Regulation and policy is a big one.
Yeah.
I used to travel to the Northeast quite often, and there's certain products there which are simply not available in other parts of India. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, vegetarian and non-vegetarian produce, because agriculture includes meat,
Yes. Yes.
poultry. Uh, there's certain value chains, which if you do value chain financing to them, you
Yeah.
can get attractive markets outside of India. Uh, so I think it's a tricky one, and I think collaboration between states is also important. I mean, because ultimately, having traveled in the region, the geographic barriers can sometimes be absolutely. When I say
Yeah.
geographic barriers, I'm talking about infrastructure.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, so I think that these physical issues also need to be considered. Uh, and to me, the policy and regulation is the biggest, game, because the other issues are starting to be addressed. Capital is
Okay.
available, consumers are interested. Even this infrastructure problem is starting to get somewhat addressed. Uh, I think we have to be a bit strategic in how we look at certain products. And given the location of the Northeast, very close to Bangladesh and to Myanmar, I used to, in fact, lead a fund that would invest in Myanmar, Bangladesh, and some of these regional things. And so that's how we have to look at it as a regional activity. So these are some of my thoughts at a macro level.
Okay. Thank you.
Can
So
I
Basant,
have a small answer on that?
Madhusudan, for the want of time, I just want to limit only one person reacting
Okay,
to
no
each
problem.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basant, I would want you to react to this particular question, which is on the chat box. How important are AgTech solutions in promotion of organic produce, especially for small farmers, producer companies in Northeast?
Yeah, it's the same way that I answered. Like these retail store owners, like Madhusudan, they struggle for supply, correct? And there is huge default. Nobody partners in a way it should be. So they need to reach out to the people, to the buyers, to the group of buyers, and they need to develop that partnership on a long-term basis, understanding each other and in a participatory manner, which I just explained. So that is the
Yes.
only solution. For small
No,
FPC, you find out a small chain of retail stores. No problem.
agri-tech specifically. Agri-tech specifically. They are talking
Yeah,
about
AgTech,
agri-tech.
AgTech, all these AgTechs. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So how can that be applicable for small FPCs is what is the question?
No, what do you mean by AgTechs?
I think they're talking about this, you have this, what is source trace, these kind of software solutions. Like, you also have IoT being used nowadays to
Correct. Suppose there's some AgTech which develops an app. Okay, on app it gets downloaded to all the farmers in the area. Correct, and then they link buyers to it. Correct. So there, those AgTechs can very well identify who to link where, and that is the solution for small FPCs. Uh, I'm not sure. Can Ankit come if I'm answering correctly, or if there's something specific that he wants to ask?
Can I just add to this real briefly? Because on
yes, Kartik, please go ahead.
Just real briefly on this, right?
Yeah.
See, because it's a point that I also missed out on, the importance of technology and scalability, right? So, so we can't underestimate this AgTech point, and we just trying to unpack what exactly AgTech means, as as Mr. Mishra was asking. See, I think there's three things to it. One is lowering the cost of delivery. So the most basic level, like Krishna, you guys all do this, having apps and systems and processes so that our field workers to engage with farmers, you'll have a team of employees, who are out there running around. So the first is using technology, IT, ERP, to reduce our systems and processes. Very good. The next level is with the farmer itself, right? That many farming families have a mobile phone, so using data, and think of an e-commerce app like Gramophone, from where the farmer can directly order products. So now you're going beyond the employees. And the third level of AgTech is actually precision ag. And this has a lot of potential in Northeast. Satellites and sensors and soil testing and everything, right? To these expensive systems that people like Sula and, these vineyards use, where all the water is being managed through technology and all. So I think this is a big potential in Northeast that is probably yet underused, particularly precision ag.
Yes. Thank you, Kartik, for that very insightful thought on technology. So, Madhusoodhanan, I want you to react to this final question, which is on the chat box. Today's main challenge for exporting organic products from the Northeast is the lack of infrastructure for post-harvest management and logistics for organic produce, as there are also geographical challenges when it comes to Northeast. Mega food parks are sanctioned by government in certain locations. What should be the model that should be established to ensure robust supply chain in Northeast? I think you are on mute.
Yeah, sorry. See, I was saying I'm not really expert on the supply chain part of it, so I don't think I would be able to contribute on that. I don't really know the answer.
So I think essentially food processing parks, which has been the pet project of the Ministry of Food Processing, those food processing parks are required even in Northeast, which can actually ensure that produce doesn't come purely as organic produce, but can also come as ready to eat and ready to cook. We have not even ventured into those kind of discussions, like how do we reach to the consumer with ready to eat and ready to cook kind of products. And there, I think mega food products, which will do primary processing and secondary processing, will be required. But I think it's a long answer to be done. Of course, mega food parks will help that products will get standardized, local produce will get really value added, and then it gets transported to the urban markets in different locations across the country. With that note, we are at 12:25. Thank you very much for all the three of you. It's been a really insightful discussion for the last 2 hours. And I would ask my colleague Narendra to just summarize the 10-15 points that we have got through your entire discussion. Please stay for that in the next 2 minutes, and we will close with a photograph of everybody and of those who participated. And we really thank for all the time that has been given by the panelists.
Thank you, KG. It was really an insightful discussion, and we could actually draw a lot of conclusions based on the experience that you have shared. So some of the things that we have noted during the panel discussion is we started with questions like how can capital really flow into the places where it is actually required, and then we've also started with thinking on how organic supply chain is not organized and how it should be organized. And one more thing is like the quality that urban consumer is seeking is not understood at the farmer level. So we have started with these thoughts, and slowly we entered into a discussion on how the finance can be organized and markets can be organized. In terms of finance, some of the thoughts that were shared are like we should, especially after COVID, investors have realized that agri and health are the important sector to invest. And there are dedicated funds, agri dedicated funds, which are available by traditional investors. And at the end, if given, like if we wear the hat of net fee in financing, the solutions that were suggested are basically it should go with the ecosystem support and then equity support for the startups which are there. And again, startups means local startup from the people who are there in the Northeast, and then focusing on the blended finance. So these are some of the solutions suggested as part of the discussion. And in terms of marketing, like some of the key topics discussed are basically how to educate consumers, because it's not only in organic, like there will be different types of variety of products available. So on one side, focusing on the standardization of products is one key point. At the same time, educating consumers on organic products and their standards is also important. So Mr. Madhusoodhanan clearly explained on how they are doing it through their stores. But at the same time, it was discussed that it can't be done when people are doing it at a scale, because for 10 stores already they are finding it difficult. But when someone is doing it at a large scale, 100 stores, 200 stores, educating consumer is not so easy. So that's one challenge. And also regarding certification, we have discussed that we should focus more on quality assurance rather than just on certification, because as Mr. Basant mentioned that someday when certification agency itself is is not doing well, means if the credibility and certification agency itself is a big question, then people will actually, this entire thing will go back. So that's why we should not just go on ride on the certification thing. We should more focus on quality assurance part. We need to gain the trust of consumer through the vendors. And at the same time, it was also discussed that pricing has to be optimized. Like Basant has mentioned that in any retail store, we can't just go with the premium amount for all the products. There should be different products, varied products, where people can walk in for regular products, and then there will be availability of other products with premium, so that slowly consumer can get the taste of organic, and then they can convert slowly into organic thing. That is one thing. At the same time, Mr. Madhusoodhanan mentioned that the way to deal with the farmers is more about, especially in terms of paying them, remunerating the farmers, is just go by the conventional market price with a little premium based on the market rate at that day. And finally, we concluded that if we are giving 100 crore funds to work on this, especially on the marketing part, then I think we would be focusing on to deal with the capacities of 1,000 groups of farmers. Basically, the group may be informal group or FPO, to create farmer groups and then building their capacities. And at the same time, building the capacities of different value chain actors. And also on the hard infrastructure like cold storages, warehouses, and especially focusing on certain maybe 5 to 10 crops rather than just generalizing it everywhere. So also one of the most important point is subsidizing the farmers for the crop failure or any other risk that they assume in this entire process is also one important area where we should invest the fund. So with this, I think we have really covered most of the interesting areas. Thank you all the panel, and thank you KG for moderating it really well. Thanks.
So thank you everyone for very enthusiastic participation and patiently listening to this. All the participants were almost standard at around 22 to 35. It's a good sign that our panelists have been engaging them very interesting thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy weekend.
Bye.